Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Tolhurst. Welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show for day 26th of March 2022. I'm with my late party Zach, I'm just trying to call this.
Hello, Charlie. Hello.
Oh, it's great to be back, guys. 26th of March. So yes, plenty of great things to talk about tonight. Do apologise that I am a little bit blocked up. I'm all right though, don't worry. That's
Thank
fine.
God for that.
Yeah, I had a COVID test yesterday and I was negative, so I'm all right though. I'm feeling great. That's all I'm going to say. As many of you guys around the world are right now. So we're going to start the show off by talking about Russia and Ukraine. Russia recognizing Donbass as independence. To me, doesn't sound like much in terms of peace agreements being made. If you ask me, Russia claiming everything for Donbass seems to me like they want to use this to mark more propaganda for Putin's campaign. Zach, what do you make of the current events over in Ukraine during the invasion?
Well, first of all, Charlie, it seems like things are improving. If you're a Ukrainian army member, it seems like it's getting better and better each week now. The best thing it would for any country would there to be an absolute peace with no interference. Obviously, with the Russia invasion, that hasn't been the case, but it appears that their army has been getting a little bit better and better this week, Charlie, because counter attacks were launched by the Ukrainians in Russian-controlled areas, such as these little suburbs around Kyiv. There is now an attempt, Charlie, to take Kherson, the biggest major city, Charlie, that was obviously under Russian control for a bit. It appears that's going to fall at the moment to the Ukrainian army at this rate, which is excellent news, to be fair, Charlie, because Russia have tried to take over these little suburbs and areas and completely obliterated them whilst they're at it. We've seen the harrowing experience of Mariupol once again being absolutely bombarded as well. But the Ukrainians are launching counterattacks that seem to be very successful, Charlie, to the point where they've stopped the Russian advances and even pushed back the Russian army outside of Kyiv and Kharkiv as well, which is excellent news, Charlie. It's excellent news. And quite frankly, it just shows the operation so far, Charlie, has been so successful with all the weapons and missiles, the systems that have been delivered to them. It's all been very successful so far, Charlie. And we can thank the worldwide community for that. All these weapons and so much things that have actually been delivered because they have proven effective against a Russian army that seems to be faltering, running out of steam. And quite frankly, Charlie, no matter what they claim, they're losing the battle. Now, they're obviously focused around the Donbass area. As you said, Charlie, negotiations not exactly going round between Russia and Ukraine at the moment. The latest is that the Russian demands is that obviously they want Ukraine should go neutral status, so no NATO and anything like that. They want to claim Donbass and Crimea as part of their country as well. They call for the denazification, which is obviously just an anti-Semitic term for the removal of the leaders and everything like that. I don't know what the hell denazification is. It just sounds like some racist old tripe that they've decided to bottle out because their leader is the Ukrainian leader is Jewish and everything like that. But yeah, so the negotiation is not going well on that front, and I suspect that the Russians are saying they've completed the first phase of the special military operation, aka war and invasion on Ukraine. So if the first part of it was pretty much hell, I don't think we're seeing the end of this yet, Charlie. There's no way this is going to end anytime soon. I think it's going to get pretty nasty because if this is going to be the first part, then I can't imagine what the second part looks like, Charlie. Nevertheless, it's not looking pretty at all. Whatever it is, Charlie, it's not good. But yeah, it's a bit rain at the moment, but yeah, so far I have to say it's been a good week for Ukraine in terms of getting their army positions, taking back territories. It's not a good week. You're living in Mariupol, where you're still being flattered and hit and absolutely slaughtered, Charlie, in terms of what's going on there. So, yeah, it's a bit of two halves at the moment. We have seen determination of many people still, Charlie. It's still going on very, very well. But the hell keeps going, I'm afraid, Charlie, and I don't think it's going to continue stop anytime soon.
No, Zach, I have to say that as well. And obviously to people watching this, that the Russians still unleashing hell in Ukraine. And the theatre bombing in Mariupol, 300 people are believed to have died, according to that, according to reports that we got earlier from intelligence committees and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
The true number of Russian dead, though, Russia don't want to release their death toll, obviously to probably, again, promote propaganda reasons. But, yeah, also as well, though, I have to say, the theatre bombing in Mariupol, a tragic and horror war crime that President Putin has committed. He even done a speech the other day where he was saying that the sanctions in question were like cancelling Russia. He mentioned J.K. Rowling in one of his speeches. What the hell was this about?
It's such a ludicrous comparison, Charlie. I could not believe it when I heard it. It was such an incredibly insensitive and ludicrous comparison. I don't know where. It's incredible, first of all, right? Okay, that Vladimir Putin follows J.K. Rowling so much. Obviously, it's funny enough, probably because the main reason for this and main reason for that is probably because the character Dumbledore was probably based on Vladimir Putin originally when Harry Potter launched that many years ago. So that's probably why he pays so much attention to J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. No, there's no comparison though. J.K. Rowling, people have been cancelling J.K. Rowling, whatever the opinion is, for her opinions on transgenderism and women's rights. Some obviously transgender activists saying that some of the comments are transphobic and everything like that. The reason why Russia's been cancelled, Charlie, is not because of some transphobic issues or debate over what gender identity and all that sort of thing. It's because they've started a war on a democratic and civil country, Charlie. That's a difference. I think the difference between cancelling someone for transgender rights and the difference between cancelling someone who's invaded the country is totally different, Charlie, I have to say on this one. If you invade a country, then you deserve to be cancelled. Cancel culture can only be acceptable in the most definite circumstances. Transgender rights, yeah, that's up for debate. But invading a country and starting a war on them and being literally, being dismissed by the world, yes, you do absolutely deserve to be cancelled on that reason, Charlie. There's no comparison for it. I know there might be some turfs that might be celebrating the comparison between Putin and J.K. Rowling. I hope, God Almighty, if they associate themselves in the same sentence and prove that he's right, then God Almighty. Anyways, Charlie, the cancelling of Russia is well deserved anyway. I hope may that long continue, in my opinion.
Yes, Zach, and whilst we're here, we're going to play for you a little speech by the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, on something very important to do with why countries sanctioned Russia oil and gas industries, as he said that he wants to make unfriendly countries pay for Russian gas in rubles. Have a listen to this. I've decided to hold on, here we go. I've decided to implement a set of measures to switch over payments as soon as possible. Let's start with our natural gas, to switch over payments for our natural gas supplied to the so-called unfriendly countries into Russian rubles. That's what he said there. This is now translated with a reporter speaking. Here we go with the reporter speaking.
Russian gas accounts for around 40% of Europe's total consumption. The possibility a change of currency could throw that trade into disarray. Putin said the government and central bank had 1 week to come up with a solution on how to move these operations into rubles, and ordered gas giant Gazprom to make the corresponding changes to gas contracts. According to Gazprom, 58% of its sales of natural gas to Europe and other countries as of the 27th of January was settled in euros. US dollars accounted for about 39% of gross sales, and sterling around 3%. The European Commission has said it plans to cut EU dependency on Russian gas by 2/3 this year and end its reliance on Russian supplies of the fuel well before 2030. But unlike the United States and Britain, EU states have not agreed to sanction Russia's energy sector. Russia's list of unfriendly countries corresponds to those that have imposed sanctions on it.
Yes, thank you there to The Sun for that report there. I do apologise for me mentioning The Sun at the start there. So that was The Sun with that report talking about why Putin wants to ask unfriendly countries to pay for his gas, yet they sanction him so we can't buy or get their gas. So what do you make of that comment?
Well, yeah, I think it proves that he's really feeling the effect of the sanctions, Charlie, no doubt about it. Can I just say, Charlie, I think you should do a part-time job on translating there, because you did well at the beginning there. But, yeah, he's really feeling the effects of the sanctions, isn't he? You can tell it's getting to him, telling him to get into his countries and everything like that. And obviously the punishment for these, to get what he calls unfriendly countries. Well, I presume he's got to have a lot of unfriendly countries at this rate, Charlie. What's left for these friendly countries? There's China, maybe Iran. I don't know, Yemen,
North Korea. We'll get onto them in a
North
minute.
Korea, probably as well, Charlie. Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, that may well be a possibility. The rest of the world, yeah, unfriendly countries probably at the minute, Charlie. I mean, yeah, it's not surprising really. He would always do counter sanctions as well. Whenever Russia is sanctioned, they do a counter sanction as well to get to ease the cost so that both countries get the effect. It's not exactly working though, Charlie. I haven't seen much economic effect this week so far. But nevertheless, it's not really surprising, really, to be fair, Charlie. He does this out of retaliatory all the time. This is Joe Biden, by the way, as you can probably tell from what you put up, calling for basically the removal of Vladimir Putin. What's implied in his speech. A White House official then sort of talk about what he actually meant, what he really meant. But go over the original version. He actually should be removed from power. The only way to do that is an uprising, I think, of the people, Charlie. I think the only option in that one is, as much as we like to see him removed, some people even want him dead.
Oh, wow.
I kind of share those opinions. I don't normally wish death on people, but no, this one, yeah, you can kind of see why there's an appetite to wish Vladimir Putin death and all that sort of thing as well. But yeah, Biden gave a speech in Poland today because he's been visiting Europe. There's been a NATO summit this week. There's been a European Union summit, a G7 summit in the same area as well. And what he said in his speech today, he called obviously for the removal of Vladimir Putin. He said the Russian people is not the enemy, it's the Russian government, obviously, as well. Those are not actions of a great nation, he said, Charlie. Of all people, the Russian peoples were all people across Europe still have the memory of a similar situation in the 30s and 40s. He's talking about World War II, obviously. Still fresh in mind of many grandparents in the region, Charlie. Obviously, Poland was took a big part in World War II, Charlie. Certainly, if you remember as well. But the president has been certainly doing his European tour this week. He'd come back to the White House later this evening or early hours in the morning, probably after the clocks change. It's been a busy week for the States and all the European leaders as well, gathering in Brussels this week to talk all things Russia-Ukraine.
Yeah, it is. As well as that, Sadiq Khan, another one there in London, also slammed Russia for its barbaric aggression of Ukraine as well. Wow. Many leaders certainly getting into condemning Russia's invasion there of Ukraine. I have to say, I actually agree with Sadiq Khan for one thing on that. Actually, I think that, mind you, though, that's a strong. You need to say that because Russia have launched this unprovoked attack on a sovereign country. Ukraine done nothing wrong, and as I said earlier, to see what happened in Mariupol, that 300 people being dead in a theatre bombing. Oh, God, as well. Also, as well, there was a Russian warship got destroyed as well. Out at in the Black Sea, there was also fighting going on in Lviv as well the other day. So it's clear to me that fighting has been taking place. Thank goodness thank you to all the journalists out there who have been covering the story. I know a lot of journalists out there have risked their life going out there. Sometimes nearly being shot by Russian tanks because the Russians don't want to let them through. It's horrible. All I can say is Yayan Ilin and Folina and Russian invi. Stop this war. Boris Johnson said that Yayam and invi and Russian invi. Stop this war right now. You can watch Boris Johnson's speech on that. It's really important that you always pay attention. Now, turning from that now to North Korea. Now, the maddest dictator in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, who shut his country down after just one COVID case got detected, believe it or not, has launched a brand new hypersonic missile capable of destroying anything in its path, including what he wants to do, launch one to the US. Zach, what does this dictator want to do?
Oh, he's back, isn't he? He's back with his mini missiles, as we like to say, an intercontinental ballistic missile he launched. He tested today. It was yesterday. He tested the missile, and he made the announcement of that missile launch with a very strange, basically North Korean TV propaganda broadcast. It looked like came out the middle of Top Gun. It was it looked like a really terrible edition of Top Gun, Charlie. So it was him in a bunch of leather jackets with some silly sunglasses that makes him look like Tom Cruise, but more like Tom the Twit, if anything. And decided to basically launch a test another intercontinental ballistic missile. This is some of it.
Got the video up for you guys right now. Apologies, it might be slightly buffery.
A little bit buffery. But he comes out alongside his two generals, presumably the people that help alongside it. And you can see the door opens as well. And you can see the missile on top of this massive, gigantic... it's incredible, really, Charlie.
Yeah, I know.
It's the way this was revealed in a leather jacket,
I'll show you
dark
now.
glasses, video effects and dramatic music was the description of it. And I have to say, Charlie, as you said,
there's the missile in question, guys. Yep,
hideous. It looks like something that comes out the Top Gear garage or something like that. But it looks hideous. It looks obviously very staged for one, the video. And then there's him looking at his clock, like time's running out. Hopefully time will run out on his leadership one day. It probably won't change the country overall and what they're planning to do. They're communist and quite frankly mad regime of celebrating missile launches that destroy the US. And look, they're just all a bunch of hippies in this video, Charlie. They really do. I don't mean to be rude or offensive, but
no, that's fine.
Look like the biggest bunch of hippies, like just launching some dramatic missile launch and celebrating it. I mean, come on, it looks stupid. It looks like kids' television from the 80s. It's the sort of thing that the kids will get excited about.
There's the missile actually launching as well.
But it's incredible. He's doing this at time to show that North Korea is still on the world stage, Charlie, despite what's going on. We've sort of forgot about them for the last couple of months. Now when all this
Yeah.
war starting again, they decided that Kim Jong-un has decided to have another pop of it as well. Hopefully never gets anything as well. South Korea obviously have nice little intelligence about what happens in North Korea as well. And hopefully they keep it on that way. Hopefully one day we are bombing their ballistic missile
Is his own missile launch there as well? Wow.
Yeah, hopefully we are one day the South Koreans are bombing the North Korean missile sites.
Yeah.
Because this is not what we want to see, and the last thing we want to see,
No.
no matter how cool he looks, and I can't sometimes think though I can't tell whether he's actually lost weight sometimes, because some days he looks like he's got fatter, and the other days he looks like he's looks like a healthy old divvy happy feet, everything like that. So yeah. Kim Jong-un's back, let's just say that, and I don't say that in a nice way.
Is he potentially Vladimir Putin's friend? Potentially.
Oh, probably.
Like this. My problem is if North Korea launch one of these missiles, and they basically like join forces with Russia on the axis, that could spark an armed conflict potentially with NATO.
Yeah. I don't think it gets into NATO. Well, it could get well into NATO territory because they're targeting the US. What a bunch of saddos, by the way. They have this beef with the US for whatever reason. And all this effect of fixing relations when Trump was around never quite worked, did it? So yeah, the relationship is still as dim as ever. They still want to pick a fight with the US for whatever reason. They seem to be obsessed with that, and I have no idea why they want to pick a fight with the US at the moment. I know they got all their sanctions and everything in place and kicked out the world and that sort of thing, like Russia at the moment, and so are Iran for that effect. But yeah, they're just looking for a bunch of attention again, Charlie. That's not necessary at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Zach, we'll keep you updated on all that latest news from Russia and Ukraine, and also the North Korean situation. What the hell is Kim Jong-un doing to launch a ballistic missile? Potentially, I wonder, because I watched the Russian missile launches the other day from a field in Ukraine or somewhere, and they were using like these armored tanks to launch them out of. So, God, the world of nuclear war or nuclear weapons are certainly becoming very part of our news topics at the moment. We're all having to cover them. So, yeah, why not cover one if they get launched? That'd be interesting. They're not good, though. Sport briefing now. Talking about sports news. Formula One qualifying for the, should I say, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at Jeddah. There was a missile strike in Jeddah the other day at an oil depot. I have to say that was a horrifying event. Formula One, though, will be continuing to race this weekend as well. They have put a statement out on their social media pages. Stefano Domenicali, the president, has announced that it will continue as planned. Now, I haven't watched the highlights, but I did hear a shock announcement today, which is Mercedes Lewis Hamilton not making it out of Q1 for the first time since Brazil 2017. I have to say, for Mercedes this weekend, lacking so much pace, and clearly Lewis Hamilton will be absolutely disappointed with that position of 16th from the grid.
Oh, honestly, Charlie, from first last year to 16th this year, where on earth has happened to Mercedes? It appears that Mercedes and all the Mercedes-powered trains, engines, trains, power engines, they sort of heard you kind of hear that phrase. But they're all down for whatever reason, Charlie. They're all down. They're falling behind the Ferraris, certainly know that one. But it was not the Ferraris that made the headlines today, actually, Charlie, in terms of pace. It was Sergio Perez who launched an absolute rocket of a lap on the lap that was most needed at the most, and got his first ever pole position. I mean, he took part in 100 odd Grand Prix, Charlie, and goodness me, he got it on this one. Wow, it's his first pole in Formula One, and what a well-deserved pole it was, no doubt about it, Charlie. Great lap at the end. It was actually the Red Bulls that were mainly that looked potential, But it was the Ferraris that actually were the fastest throughout, as well. Funny enough, Charlie, the Red Bull being on pole. I mean, it was Perez, not Verstappen. I actually texted Jack and said, "Oh, I was going to think it was going to be a Red Bull pole."
Yeah.
But I certainly think it was not the Red Bull pole I was expecting. Sergio Perez, what a lap, I have to say. It was the two Ferraris behind Leclerc and Sainz, Charlie. I mean, Sainz has been put in some good pace this weekend, just falling behind Leclerc. Today when it needed the most. Verstappen fourth. Now, I read somewhere that there was an incident that the stewards investigation that they noted, but I don't know whether they've actually investigated it, Charlie. I'll keep an eye out on that one as well. Now, Ocon was fifth, good qualifying. George Russell, sixth is, well, have to say, Charlie, sixth position. It's okay for Mercedes at the moment. Would have been not best to really been more ideal for Russell to finish ahead of Ocon. Alonso seventh, another good Alpine, very good qualifying, no doubt about it, Charlie. With the Renault engines inside them. Valtteri Bottas eighth, another good qualifying for Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly ninth, Magnussen 10th, not as well. Lando Norris 11th, Ricciardo 12th, Guan Yu Zhou 13th. Mick Schumacher, we should have to mention this, Charlie.
Big crash for Mick Schumacher at turn 12.
Crash. 70G impact, 170 miles an hour. I've just read, Charlie, he is okay, but has been deemed unfit to race tomorrow, so therefore will not be taking part tomorrow. I've just read about that, Charlie.
Yeah, Jack messaged me as well just before we went on air to say that he wouldn't be taking part. My friend Jack. So, sorry.
Yeah. But unfit for race for Mick Schumacher. We wish him well, obviously, because that was I'm glad he's okay, and obviously he needs some time to recover. But it was a horrible accident. No chance they were going to fix that car anyway, Charlie. Even if that was the case, as well. So he was out in Q2. Lance Stroll 15th as well, not good qualifying thing. Lewis Hamilton 16th position, Charlie. First time he's been out of Q1 since 2018, I believe it was.
Brazil 2017.
Brazil 2017. He's been out in Q1. Wow, shocking qualifying, Charlie. No doubt about it. Alex Albon not as well, and both Williams out, by the way. Alex Albon 17th, Hulkenberg 18th, Nicholas Latifi 19th, and Tsunoda had a fuel problem. One for Red Bull to keep an eye out on, considering all the fuel issues that they've had. He did not set a lap because of a fuel assist pressure issue, and therefore he starts at the back. It'll be interesting to see whether he's actually going to be actually between 18th and 19th on this grid, Charlie, because I read, obviously, because Lewis Hamilton's had a few problems recently, and there was a suggestion at the when he was interviewing, I think, Adam Cooper from Motorsport magazine, that he could make so many changes to the point where he could start from the pit lane. So Tsunoda could be 19th, really, to be fair, if you think about it, Charlie, or 18th in this instance, and Hamilton in the pit lane. But yes, there'll be 19 drivers, Charlie. I have to say, I'm glad that we're lucky there's going to be a race tomorrow, Charlie, if you think about it. Considering all the meetings that went on yesterday, I should point out this, Charlie, because all the meetings yesterday, as you mentioned, that rocket attack on the Armaco oil plant, that was 10 kilometers away from the circuit, Charlie. No doubt about it. It was a very worrying development, I have to say, Charlie, as well. The drivers certainly did not feel comfortable racing, I have to say, because it took 4 hours for them to get a deliberation about whether to race this weekend, Charlie. The GPDA came out with their own statement. The F1 came out with their own statement. But it was touch and go to see whether we were actually going to race this weekend, Charlie, with the rocket attack going by. And this is why, if you think about it, we haven't raced in Russia because of atrocities and that committed in another country. So it makes you wonder why we're racing here when there's been rocket attacks. I believe the Houthi group, which have claimed responsibility for this, they're the Iran-backed group that are bombing Saudi Arabia, have announced a 3-day ceasefire, which is obviously good news at the moment. But the fact that this happened so close to the racetrack, Charlie, just eked out the security concerns. No wonder why it launched a lot of concerns for drivers and some team members.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say on that as well. Nicholas Latifi also crashed in qualifying as well. Mick Schumacher wasn't the only one. Nicholas Latifi, turn 13, lost the rear end, had quite a heavy shunt into barriers. He is okay. He did have a checkup at the medical centre earlier today. But Williams' Nicholas Latifi is okay following a crash earlier on in Q1. But yes, as you said, Zach, Sergio Perez starts on pole for Red Bull, Charles Leclerc second for Ferrari, Carlos Sainz starts third for Ferrari, Red Bull Racing's Max Verstappen fourth, Esteban Ocon fifth for Alpine, George Russell sixth for Mercedes, seventh is Fernando Alonso for Alpine, Valtteri Bottas starts eighth for Alfa Romeo Ferrari, Pierre Gasly starts ninth for Alpha Tauri, and Kevin Magnussen gets into Q3 for the second straight race. So a very interesting race. That will be on tomorrow as well. Lights out, I think, around 6 o'clock for that tomorrow on Sky F1. But moving on now, I'm going to cover Formula 2 actually on this show because last week in Bahrain, there was a crash in the pit lane between a couple of cars.
Yeah, I saw this race, Charlie. There was a few little accidents going on in the pit lane. It was a bizarre incident, Charlie, because not only one car crashed, but two cars crashed all in the same go, Charlie. And it was a very bizarre accident, I have to say, Charlie. There were two separate incidents. One that I think ended up running over their own crew, do you remember? I think one of them, the other way went too early and therefore took the other member as well. But it was bizarre. Oh, actually, one of them spun in the pit lane, I think, if I remember, Charlie. Yeah, but it was a bizarre accident, nevertheless, Charlie, as well. I have to say, F2 today, Charlie, was a complete farce because of a certain incident, thing that happened during the race. We had half the race under the safety car, Charlie, as well. And then we had this bizarre incident, I think, Charlie, as well during the race. Dennis Hager, I think as well. There was a safety car that came out, Charlie. I think it was the second safety car. And there was conflicting messages between the race director and what was the safety car, because the safety car had been asked to go through the pit lane originally. And then they decided to change it last minute so that the safety car wasn't going through the pit lane. The pit entry was going to be closed. And Dennis Hager, I think it was, that got caught out by it.
Yeah.
Went through the pit lane, unaware of what was communicated, ended up getting penalty for it because he went through the pit lane whilst it was closed. It was such a bizarre and ridiculous situation, Charlie, that it made it look like a farce, really. Not very good communications between the FIA and the drivers. Once again, Charlie, poor communication. It was Liam Lawson that won today's sprint race ahead of Juri Vict and Felipe Drugovich. Callum Williams, I think he's rookie as well, in fourth position. Richard Verschoor, fifth. Ayoale Suarez, sixth. Jaya Jaruvula, seventh. Sato is eighth. Roy Nassani, ninth. Emerson Fittipaldi was 10th on that one. It was Leon Lawson that ran the sprint race, Charlie. The feature race is going to happen tomorrow, I believe. As well, Charlie, as well, where the results of qualifying, those in the top 10 who qualified in first attempt will start in their original grid positions as well. So, yeah, looking forward to that. I think I might be able to watch that because I'll probably be up by then.
Didn't Formula 2 have a reverse grid race where you start?
It was today, Charlie. They do the reverse grid race on Saturday. If you qualify in the top 10 and you finish 10th, your positions get reserved, so you start first.
Oh, wow.
And then if you qualify on pole, you will start 10th for the sprint race, and then I think it sort of changes. There from onwards. So yeah, that's how it works. Liam Lawson was the victor today, Charlie. About it with a decent drive in quite surreal circumstances and partial race direction sometimes, Charlie.
Yeah, I was just going to say they usually hold the sprint race on a Sunday. That's why I got a bit
Yeah, it's
confused.
changed
I
this
thought the
year.
feature race.
It's the Saturday. It's the Saturday this year. They've gone back to 2 races for the weekend now instead of 3. So it's Saturday sprint race and then a Sunday feature race as well, Charlie. So I just thought I'd point that out as well
Yeah,
for future reference.
that's fine, Zach. Future reference, all the listeners out there and watching live on YouTube tonight, that the feature race has been moved to Sunday. The sprint race is now on Saturday. So if you watch Formula 2, please note with qualifying, if you finish 8th, the top 8 positions get reversed on the grid. So, yeah, that is all I can say on that one. That's Formula 2. I'm going to move over to the States now quickly to do NASCAR action right now. Obviously, NASCAR do race at COTA this weekend, a Formula 1 circuit, where the Cup Series is going. I just want to quickly review last week's Cup Series race, which was the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. And William Byron winning that race. A pretty eventful race, if you ask me, for William Byron winning that one. Zach, what did you make of that race?
Oh, it was an eventful race, Charlie. It was obviously the first race under a newly resurfaced and reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway, where it was all under the Super Speedway dual package. And boy, it did produce some track racing, Charlie, no doubt about it. A few crashes, some eventful passes, an eventful last lap, which saw William Byron managed to get the draft and get ahead and win the race on the last lap, Charlie. A very good race as well. Josh Chastain just finished behind him, so I think was Kurt Busch, and ahead of Cameron Suarez and Corey LaJoyce as well. They're racing at COTA this weekend, Charlie, as well. I'm currently watching the Xfinity Series race at the moment, Charlie, for in case you're wondering, at the moment. But it is currently AJ Allmendinger that is leading at the moment, ahead of Ty Gibbs and Ross Chastain and Cole Custer fourth, for Labib in 5th at the moment, Charlie. The Cup Series tomorrow, the grid for that is that Ryan Blaney is going to be the pole sitter ahead of Daniel Suarez, Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, and Alex Bowman. So that will be the top 5 on the grid, Charlie. It is road racing. They've obviously done it on a different qualifying system, Charlie, because it is a road course. They do it slightly different. They go out in groups rather than individually. And Blaney got through to the final stage and won, set the fastest lap time by just over 200ths of a second ahead of Daniel Suarez, Charlie. It was a very tight, close qualifying. Logano 6th, Christopher Bell 7th, Danny Hamlin 8th, Josh Hawley 9th, and Austin Cendric 10th as well, Charlie. The Brad Keselowski, Charlie, just for aware, his number 6 team has been penalised 100 points and fined $100,000 for a technical offence for modifying a single source supplied part, Charlie. So that's a source that you're not supposed to be legally changing. His crew chief got suspended for 4 races as well, and he's been docked 100. His team's been docked 100 points, and he's also been given penalty points on the playoffs as well, Charlie. So that's one to consider as well for Brad Keselowski this weekend. So he's going to be needed a good weekend, Charlie, because he's been docked 100 points for a technical infringement.
Yeah, just getting that up for you now, guys. That is the RFK Racing would appeal that penalty for the number 6 car, the number 16 there, Brad Keselowski as well. So NASCAR officials issued a level 2 penalty for the number 6 Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing Team Thursday morning, penalising him 100 points and 100 owner points. Penalty comes under section 14.1 and 14.5 in the NASCAR rulebook, both of which pertain to the modification of a single sourced supply part. In addition to the penalty points, crew chief Matt McCall was fined $100,000, suspended from the next 4 races, which are the Cup Series points races. Should the number 6 team of Brad Keselowski qualify for NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, it would be penalised with a loss of 10 playoff points. Oh, wow. So that could hurt Brad Keselowski's championship aspirations this year. That's if he gets into the playoffs. That's all I can say at the moment. But we're going to keep up on NASCAR, actually, because the Camping World Truck Series race, I think, has finished. So we'll do a quick little recap on that one. whilst we're here.
Yeah.
Zane Smith taking the victory there, ahead of, I think, Jamie John Hunter Namecheck finishing second, and third going the way of Kyle Busch in that race there in the number 51 Toyota, the number 38 Ford there of Zane Smith winning. What did you make of that race?
Yeah, I didn't see much of it earlier, but Zane Smith continuing his good run of form, Charlie, no doubt about it, because he's been very consistent throughout the year in that number 38 car. Certainly a car to contender already, I think, Charlie. No doubt about it. Ahead of John Check as well. Obviously, Kyle Busch, who obviously rates part-time in the truck series. He's normally very good in that as well. Third, well, he doesn't get points, obviously, because he's not a full-time driver. But, yeah, he got ahead of Ben Rose and Chastain Smith and as well. So, yeah, Zane Smith continuing his good run of form this season, I think, Charlie, no doubt about it.
Yeah, the next Camping World Truck Series race is on the 8th of April, couple of weeks' time. Actually, I think it's next week, I'm not sure. Martinsville Raceway for the Camping World Truck Series. The Xfinity go to Go Bowling 250 at Richmond on the 2nd of April. And the Cup Series go to Toyota Owners 400, which is also at Richmond next week in Virginia. So the Camping World Truck Series returns in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, very interesting news from that as well. So I honestly have to say NASCAR there certainly getting all the stops when it comes to the racing now. So we're going to move on now. Just checking whilst we're here for any more motorsport news. No, we're going to move on to Charlie's good news now. Let's go for the Apprentice, final Apprentice review of the year. And Lord Sugar has a new business partner in Harpreet winning the show. I didn't want to sort of tell everyone and give everyone spoilers early on in the week, but Harpreet won the show. She is a thing called Oh So Yum. Is a new business plan that she has opened with Lord Sugar. She's investing. Got a £250,000 investment, beating on Catherine Byrne in the end, with Pajamani in the final there. And I have to say, Zach, Harpreet, does she deserve to win the show?
Oh, absolutely. Every winner deserves to win the show somewhere. Harpreet was one of them as well. For a series that has some pretty terrible contestants, Charlie, standards that we've seen fall below level for years. Harpreet certainly, as an individual, stood out a lot, really, to be fair, Charlie, as well. It was all about pitching for their new companies that Lord Sugar was invested in as well. You know, and Lord Sugar decided to choose Harpreet's company as well for a Oh So Yum company as well, Dessert Blockbuster as well. And so that was £250,000 invested into that company, Charlie. Catherine for a pajama company just fell short at the end of the day, Charlie, as well, because obviously they had to design the logos, they had to design their brand, they had to pitch it. And at the end of the day, it was Harpreet's that came off the most presentable and the most interesting for Lord Sugar to invest in. So Harpreet is this year's winners, Charlie. Congratulations to her, and obviously a well-deserved victory.
Yes, so I'm going to go over some highlights, though, of the series. If you watch the programme, The Apprentice, Why I Fired Them, Alan Sugar goes over some of the candidates that he fired throughout the process. I have to say, I think the worst task for me was the first one for the boys.
I agree.
That logo was absolutely crap. It was rubbish. Mind you, I say that in the first 2 episodes, Aaron, project manager, designing a Whiffy the Wizard, looking like a turd by the standards of business experts. And I have to say as well, another one that I was pretty intrigued to see, Nick on the Nick showering on the task where they had to create their own like tour guides or something. Nick with a crazy explanation of Wales on a train actually got the public very confused on what they were doing. Zach, what was your highlights from the series? this year?
Oh, certainly for the worse. There's certainly the first one where the logo designs were unbelievably unintelligent. And I certainly the episode, Charlie, I think as well, where they where both teams lost. Actually, if I remember, that was the first last episode. So that one as well was quite a bad experience where both teams lost, and they lost at that stage, and it resulted in 2 firings. Charlie, I have to say as well, it's quite shocking. You know, the low quality contestants when they're losing, two teams are losing at the end of the end of the series. Charlie, it's quite something to watch that happen. So those are certainly the highlights for me, Charlie. You've seen those ones lose, and the gaming ones as well, Charlie. The ones with the games.
Oh yeah,
that was. I have to say, I wouldn't want to let them anywhere near my
Arctic Saviour.
Yeah, no. I'll keep them well away, Charlie. I do not want them designing my games for me. Let's just say, if I ever do something like that, I want to keep them away from my games. Keep them away. Don't let them touch a single bit of a code, because it might. The thing is with those lot in charge, Charlie. Someone might have put some spyware in them, Charlie, because it wouldn't be a pleasant experience trying to put some viruses in that little system of theirs.
I'll get South Essex College students that are doing the games design course to design the game instead of them contestants that lost the task on The Apprentice. Because honestly, that game was... how on earth can Francesca, who got fired that week, spell Arctic wrong? I think it was Artic or something. She spelled it wrong. I mean, I might have spelled it wrong tonight, actually. It was one of them. One of them got spelled... She spelled the name wrong. Grammatical mistake, and in the end, I have to say that was a shock firing, because she was I thought one of the favourites early on to win the series. She looked really good at pitching. She looked like she was a credible candidate, but she got fired early because of that mistake on her English skills. Oh dear. So The Apprentice is back next year. All I can say is Claude Littner will be back on The Apprentice, replacing Tim Campbell, who stood in for him that series. Zach, what have you made of Tim being in addition to Lord Sugar's aides?
Oh yeah, it's been a fine replacement, and he's obviously filled the gap now when needed, Charlie. But obviously everyone's missed Claude, because he's obviously the big devil himself. He's the most stricted, and he's the most passionate. He's the most eagle-eyed to come across. So I'm glad he's going to be back next year, no doubt about it, Charlie, because he's been well missed from the show. It was great to see the fact that he was in the back in the interview stage as well, Charlie. It was good to see that. But nevertheless, Charlie, it'll be better when there's a full season with him next season.
Yeah, I miss Claude. Just saying interviews, he's amazing. He grills candidates like you've never seen them before. So, yes, guys, The Apprentice returns next year. Congratulations to Harpreet for winning the show. So let's turn our attention now to the latest newspaper headlines. Right now, we'll keep you updated if tomorrow's papers come in, because we have got to crack on with these. So let's go straight in to the newspaper headlines. So the Financial Times, or the FT Weekend, goes with the headline, Russia says Ukraine war in new phase as focus turns to Donbass. Now, also another one, P&O locks horns with pension scheme over value of ships guaranteeing debt. That come after their CEO sacked a number of his staff. More on that in a minute. Now, the Daily Telegraph says Russians prepared to scale back invasion. Prime Minister claims Sunak snubbed his plan to keep the energy cap. That comes after the Chancellor done a spring statement to the House of Commons earlier this week. The Saturday Times goes, Russians retreating to eastern Ukraine as well. Also, the quote of J.K. Rowling getting dragged into a culture war there. Another one, J.K. Rowling hits back at ranting Putin in the Daily Express. And in the iWeekend, inside Chernobyl, first account of life at captured nuclear plant since the attack. The Guardian goes with deadliest single attack in Ukraine, killed 300 people. That was the theatre bombing in Mariupol. Also, as well, Sling Your Hook, Prime Minister calls for shameless P&O boss to quit over his illegal sackings. The Daily Star goes with shamed P&O boss is told to quit by PN. And Absolute Burt must walk the plank, says Absolute Burt, who refuses to walk the plank. Zach, what do you make of the latest headlines?
What a front page by the Daily Star. We'll come back to that as well. Can I just report, Charlie? Obviously, the clocks are changing tomorrow. And actually, I have to report there are 6 pages for tomorrow. We'll get back to that in a minute, actually, at the end, I think, Charlie, as well. But there are 6 pages for tomorrow already out. Start with the FT weekend, though, Charlie. Russia says UK war in new phase as focus turns to Donbass, indeed. There are Russia, obviously, now that they've done crap everywhere else, Charlie, losing control of certain areas, they have turned to Donbass fully now, Charlie. There's certain areas, Charlie, where they have separatist-backed, Russian-backed separatist leaders there controlling their own areas. They sort of also have so-called independent republics, which is aka Ukrainian territory under Russian control. In other words, Charlie, illegally, I should point out, which breaks the Geneva the Minsk agreement, by the way, as well. So it looks like they're going to shift to Donbass. Moscow says they never plan to storm Kharkiv and Kyiv. That's a lie, probably, because they obviously did. I can't, there's no way that someone's going to be under there telling the same bits of truth as the Russians, really, to be fair, Charlie. There's no way they're going to be telling the truth on that one. As well, the Telegraph turns to Russia prepared to scale back invasions. The Kremlin is going to focus on the so-called liberation of Donbass regions of weeks to down then. Is this once again, Charlie? I struggle to believe this, really, to be fair. Is this the case where they're going to focus on one area so they can prep their resources and take back the other areas that they've lost before? I think that could potentially be the case, Charlie. I don't know what else they would really do, to be fair, Charlie, other than do that start their preparations for another full-scale invasion once they've started doing their little bit in Donbass and taking all the rest of the areas that are not under their control, unfortunately. As well, the Times, this is the Saturday Times, Charlie, at the moment. I'm sure we'll get there. Russia's retreating to eastern Ukraine. Again, focusing on the Donbass area. But yeah, again, struggling to do what, as I say, struggling to see how that will work. And then we get to the J.K. Rowling thing, which is also a big picture on here, Charlie. Drag Rowling into culture war. As I said, Charlie, this is obviously the situation where Putin has compared Russia to being cancelled to J.K. Rowling being cancelled. Again, they may well be cancelled, but one's cancel is not exactly cancelled. There's probably a lot of feminists supporting one. Well, there's probably nobody supporting the other that's actually generally being cancelled. Which order to put that one in other words. The Daily Express will go for the same thing, Charlie. J.K. Rowling hits back at ranting Putin. She, by the way, tweeted something. I said, I stand with Ukraine. As well, she tweeted a message in support of Ukraine after the Russian dictator decided to make a weird cancel culture reference to it as well. So she's clearly, in her defense on this occasion, not really, getting blown and supporting Russia. I don't think she would ever want to support Russia. I know she sometimes can be a little bit uneasy at the LGBTQ community, but the feminist community she's probably in a good crowd of, but certainly she doesn't want the Russians coming on her side or anything like that. The I Weekend goes interesting for a little bit of a different one, Charlie. They're going they've actually managed to get access to Chernobyl. The power plant has been under a little bit of attack and also been taken into Russian control, unfortunately. Their workers have revealed that they've had to work 24 hours a day.
Oh.
Actually, in other words, a whole day of shifts. And obviously, when you're working 24 hours a day, you increase the risk of creating of making stupid little errors that put the power plant at risk, basically. Is this what the Russians are looking for? God knows, I hope not. As well, there's also safety challenges as well. There's also errors as well. The Guardian goes for the angle of the attack in Ukraine at a theatre, Charlie. I think this is in Mariupol. Yes, it was, Charlie.
Yes.
Mariupol. They focused on the story that injured 600 people, but sadly killed 300 in a theatre attack, Charlie, as well. It was a horrible, another wicked, horrible, evil attack on another facility that the Russians seem to like bombing for whatever reason as well, Charlie. It's a shocking development, I have to say, as well, Charlie. The Mirror goes for goes away from Russia and goes for some UK domestic matters. Sling your hook, they say. As well, Charlie, as they go the P&O Fairies scandal. Now, for those who probably haven't been following this, P&O Fairies is a ferry company, sort of a subset, get their ferry ships from DP World, an Abu Dhabi Saudi Arabian backed group. As well, they've made 800 jobs redundant, Charlie, all UK workers, by the way. An absolute shocking turn of events. And that when that was announced, Charlie, there was widespread condemnation of this as well. They replaced the 800 staff in the restructuring, Charlie, with foreign labour from abroad that pay them £1.80 per hour. An absolute ridiculous development and an absolute shameful exploitation of workers, Charlie, getting what they call what is under the fire and rehire, which the Conservatives keep banging on about, but then still, when it comes to decide to vote to abstain, filibuster, or vote against banning firing and rehiring, something which the Labour Party have took political campaign out of. No doubt about it, Charlie. It looks like the Prime Minister is actually saying that P&O broke the law this week and may well take them to court and everything like that. The Daily Star goes for a very interesting angle, a very hilarious front page, Charlie. Absolute Burke, who's referring to the Burke as the Prime Minister on top, must walk the plank, says Absolute Burke, who refuses to walk the plank. The one that refuses to walk the plank is obviously the one at the second pirate at the bottom. The plank, the one that must walk the plank is the one at the top, Charlie. Both clowns in their own rights, according to the Daily Star. As well, chained P&O boss is told to quit by PM, who's refused to resign over multiple things and bigger scandals, Charlie. Nevertheless, so that's probably what the Burke headline is. The Mail goes for an interview with the Dominic Raab, which said free speech to get legal supremacy. Presumably, there's presumably going to be more protections of what they call this under, free speech rules, Charlie.
Yeah.
Legal supremacy over other rights stop debate from being eroded. Dominic Raab has pledged as well. Obviously, laying into the conservative culture war message as well. We'll probably expect to see more of this because this is a culture war. Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister as well. And this is another one. This is the one that I heard as well earlier. I heard this reference to Saturday Night Takeaway, Thailand. I think it was on the question, actually. They're going for the headline Wayne Clooney because George Clooney wants to buy Derby County, according to the Sun. That would be quite something, Charlie. Other bits include the disgraced Mike Ashley, who probably doesn't deserve anywhere near a football club. But if we give clubs these days to the Saudis, we might as well give them to Mike Ashley as well. Wayne Clooney, or imagine Wayne Rooney. That's a pretty interesting one as well, Charlie. That's just the Saturday front page. There are 6, Charlie, can I report? 6 front pages that have actually been released for tomorrow, actually. I believe, Charlie. It may not come up on there for now, but it's on tomorrow's paper.
Yeah, we'll get you up, Zach. You can preview them right now.
Yeah, so let's start with the Daily Star on Sunday. Actually, yes, it is the Daily Star on Sunday. They put Crown Jewel surprise for Queen. It's an interesting one, Charlie. It's not the type of thing that you expect that the Daily the Daily Star to go on. It's another humorous front page. Nudists will strip on a boozy 10 bars cruise to mark the Queen's Jubilee. Okay, I don't want to imagine what that scene will look like for the old Queenie girl. They've said they say it's the ultimate naked event, Charlie, to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Wow. I'm a very worried, Charlie. I can't imagine seeing the sights of that. Quite frankly, it's quite disgusting that there's naked attraction every week at 10 p.m. on Channel 4 every week on Wednesday. I can't remember what day it is. I don't want to remember which day it is, Charlie. As well, but quite frankly, I think I've had enough silly pictures in our head as well. The Sunday people go for will of the people. This is actually something to do with a royal visit, Charlie, which William and Kate have been on. They've gone to the Barbados as well, and I don't know what this front page is actually referencing, Charlie. To be fair, as well, I'm going to try and see it. As well, it says we will not tell the Commonwealth what to do. As well, it looks like it may well be to do with something that whether the Barbados people want to leave the Commonwealth.
Yes. Jamaica's independence, I think.
Jamaica's independence, and therefore have the Queen removed as the Queen of the country, basically there as well. Another one going down that direction potentially. I should point out as well, I'll get back into it in a minute. The Observer, aka the Sunday Guardian, goes for Biden butcher Putin cannot be allowed to stay in power. Obviously, focusing on the remarks of Joe Biden today. Not surprisingly, nevertheless, Charlie, where he said that Joe Biden Putin doesn't deserve to be in power. The White House had to clarify what he really meant, although I sort of agree with the original definition. Let the people decide. That was the reference, by the way, Charlie, as well to the Barbados as well, on independence of that as well. I believe there's also some more papers, Charlie. There's actually, I counted 6 papers releasing their front pages by the time I saw it. Let me just see if there's 6 pages still at the moment, Charlie. The ones that haven't been covered, the Sunday Express has not have an interview, but very Ryan polling about the Chancellor's spring statement, Charlie. I'll get this up as well. It says here, solve cost of living crisis, you will lose election. The Sunday Express, that's the Tory supporting newspaper in capital letters. The polls have not been good for Rishi Sunak, Charlie. Let me just say that the polls have not been good. Whilst, so just give you a reminder of what was actually in the spring statement, Charlie. There was a VAT fuel duty cut actually by 5 pence on fuel, Charlie, which is completely useless because fuel prices are more than 5p in a week. So actually, it's just basically last week's prices, Charlie. To be fair, which is just as bad. So it's a useless measure. The only useful measure that was also re-announced, Charlie, was the national insurance threshold. Whilst the actual ride is going ahead, they're increasing the threshold from 9,500, 12,500, 700. So a 3,000 increase, Charlie, in the threshold which people start paying national insurance. Probably help those on low income as well. She also announced an income tax decrease by 1 pence in 2024. Probably an election bribe as well, Charlie. Again, I'm not falling for that. VAT cut on basically installing solar panels. The 5p becomes 0%. Sunak claimed that was an EU measure which they could remove. That's not true because apparently they could do that in Greece. So 67% are saying on this in a new poll for Sunday, so they're struggling to pay for heating and energy, and 63% don't think Rishi has done enough. In other words, he's a crap chancellor, Charlie. In other words, just to put that out it as well. The Independent goes for as well, Charlie. This is the Sunday Independent Sunday, the digital magazine. They go for voters to urge Johnson to ditch limits on refugees. This is obviously a reference to the fact of the visa scheme, which currently runs at the moment, Charlie. The public want no visa rules for Ukraine seeking sanctuary in the UK. Because currently there's a few security checks, Charlie, on who can come to the UK and who can't. And there's a few complaints about that. Valid or not, it's a genuine thing, Charlie, in that one. As well. So that I believe, Charlie, is all the papers currently for Sunday. And if there's any more coming, there's nothing else has come in, Charlie. So we expect a few more to come in at 10 o'clock approximately. but that is the Sunday papers, Charlie.
Yeah,
as
I've
well. And
just got
Saturday
some of them
papers.
up, Zach, for you there. The Independent going for voters urge Johnson to ditch limits on refugees. Public want no visa rules for Ukrainians seeking sanctuary in the UK. So yeah, I think all of these newspapers clearly represent a shifting tone from news stories covered P&O cruises, Russian Ukraine invasion, refugee crisis, and yeah, just in general, they're all the news stories covered. So the newspaper review will continue on many news channels across the evening. You can get all the latest newspaper reviews around 10:30 tonight as well. Now, moving on to the end of the show, Great British Star and Red Devil. I'm going to do my nominations this week for the awards. Great British Star this week. I'm going to give it to someone. I think this week, I'll start with the Red Devil, actually. 2 Red Devils this week for me. Rishi Sunak, funnily enough, gets my nomination for the Red Devil because I thought his spring statement was very underwhelming. And I have to say, he's raising taxes massively in this country. Didn't help anyone. He's not solving the cost of living crisis. The second one goes to Vladimir Putin for that comment about J.K. Rowling and also that comment about the war in Ukraine. I have to say, just complete dictatorship from that man. The British Star, though, I'm going to give it to Harpreet, actually, for winning The Apprentice. I think she deserves to win that show. Oh So Young, this new business, looks like it's going to be very interesting as well. I think a new startup will be launched very, very soon as well. Zach, what's your nominations for the Great British Star and Red Devil this week?
I'm going to my star of the week, Charlie. I'm going to give. I don't have the article up. I'll give you description, Charlie. I'm going to give it to a 15-year-old boy, Charlie, in Ukraine, who this week has gone through precious hell. But let me describe what happened. He was fleeing Ukraine, I believe via Mariupol, and wanted to go. I don't know where he was going originally. I think he was going to Poland or another area, or as well. And unfortunately, he got shot, basically attacked. I'm afraid so did the mother as well. The mother sadly died as well. And he's been in hospital, unfortunately, with injuries to the leg. But he gave quite an emotional interview to CNN this week, Charlie. I think it was the Thursday. A very emotional interview where he was going through the motions. And the bravery he did was outstanding, Charlie.
Oh, that's
he wants
amazing.
to continue life without the loss of the mother. He wants to continue life. He wants to be a musician, and he wants to go back and as soon as the war is over, Charlie, to continue on with his musician job as well. So fair play to the 15-year-old who's going through so much hell at the moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, incredible job by him. I'm going to give the 15-year-old boy who's in hospital at the moment, but with, you know, an incredible bravery, the British Star of the Week, Charlie, no doubt about it. 2 Red Devils, Charlie, this week. Well, actually, several, actually. I might give 3, actually. One, obviously, going to give to Putin for his ridiculous cancel culture mention as well, Charlie. 2, I'm going to give it to P&O Fairies, Charlie, for their absolute disgraceful treatment of 800 staff who they decided to fire and rehire under worse paying conditions as well. That's why it should be outlawed in this country. Number 3, Rishi Sunak as well, Charlie. I agree as well. Definitely on that with his useless spring statement. And I'm actually prepared to give a 4th this week, Charlie, to the Houthi-backed Saudi group for disrupting a Formula 1 event and causing nearly hell on the Grand Prix, Charlie. And the fact that they targeted the Armco oil plant. By the way, Armco is a sponsor of Formula 1, by the way. Just a coincidence that they've done it on the same weekend as a race that Armco is sponsoring, Charlie. Not very good. But that's a 3-day ceasefire, the Houthis, but it's disrupting the F1 race that caused a lot of hell. So the 15-year-old boy is the British Star of the Week. The Houthi groups, Pinot Fairies, Rishi Sunak, and Vladimir Putin are all the 4 Red Devils this week, Charlie.
Yeah, I was going to give a third Red Devil to King Jong-un for that missile launch as well. The Taliban missile launch will propagate it. Marxist propaganda once again. A propaganda video of him apparently looking like he's dressed as a secret agent ready for a missile launch. Thank you so much for watching the Charlie Tolhurst show this week for the 26th of March. And we'll be back again next week to round up more of the best and biggest headlines from the world. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.